When dreams become nightmares, the morning sun painted golden stripes across the servant quarters of the Ashford estate, but Cassandra Blake could not appreciate the beauty. She sat on her narrow bed, staring at the wedding dress hanging on her closet door. White silk and delicate lace mocked her with their perfection. In just 6 hours, she would walk down the aisle to marry Dominic Ashford, the man who had barely spoken 10 words to her. In the 3 weeks since their engagement, how had her life spiraled into this surreal arrangement? Cassie pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to stop the tears before they could ruin her makeup trial. Her mother, Margaret, knocked softly before entering, carrying a tray with tea and toast. "Sweetheart, you need to eat something," Margaret said, her voice thick with concern. The lines around her eyes had deepened over the past month, evidence of sleepless nights worrying about her daughter. "Ah, I cannot eat, Mama," Cassie whispered. "My stomach is in knots." Margaret sat beside her daughter, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "We can still call this off. Your father and I never wanted you to sacrifice your happiness for us." But Cassie knew the truth. The Blake family had served the Ashfords for 2 generations. When Harold Ashford approached them with his proposition, it came with an unspoken threat. Dominic needed to settle down, to shed his reputation as a reckless playboy who gambled away fortunes and dated supermodels. The family empire required stability. And somehow, Harold had decided that Cassie, the quiet girl who grew up on his estate, was the perfect solution. "I will be fine," Cassie lied, squeezing her mother's hand. "Maybe Dominic will surprise me. Maybe once we are married, he will see me differently." It was a fantasy, and they both knew it. But sometimes fantasies were all that kept you standing when the ground beneath you crumbled. The brother, who saw her 3 hours before the ceremony. Julian Ashford found Cassie in the estate gardens, hidden among the rose bushes her father had cultivated for 20 years. She did not hear him approach until he spoke. "You know, you do not have to go through with this." Cassie jumped, spinning around to face Julian. He stood in the dappled sunlight, hands in the pockets of his charcoal suit, his expression gentle. Julian had always been different from his older brother. Where Dominic was cold and calculating, Julian was warm and thoughtful. Where Dominic barked orders at the staff, Julian learned their names and asked about their families. "Your brother would disagree," Cassie replied. Attempting a smile that did not reach her eyes, Julian stepped closer, his dark eyes searching her face. "Dominic is making a mistake. He does not see what he has in you, what he is about to throw away through his indifference. Why do you care?" The question escaped before Cassie could stop it. Something flickered across Julian's face, an emotion too quick to identify. "Because someone should. Because you deserve better than being treated like a business transaction." They stood in silence, the air between them charged with unspoken words. Cassie had known Julian since childhood, had watched him grow from a gangly teenager into the man before her. He had always been kind, always noticed when she was sad, always made her laugh when she felt invisible. But he was also engaged to Bethany Reed, a prominent socialite from old money. And Cassie had no right to the feelings that stirred in her chest. "I should go get ready," she finally said. Breaking the moment, Julian nodded but caught her hand as she passed. "Cassie, if you need anything today, anything at all, I will be there." Those words would prove prophetic in ways neither could imagine. The ceremony that shattered everything. The Cathedral of St. Paul had never looked more magnificent. White roses cascaded from every surface, crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. 500 guests whispered in hushed anticipation. Cassie waited in the bride's room, her hands trembling so violently that Rachel had to help her hold the bouquet. "Breathe, honey," Rachel coached, adjusting the veil. "Just breathe. You look absolutely stunning." Cassie did look beautiful, even she could admit that. The dress hugged her figure perfectly, her dark hair was swept into an elegant updo, and her mother's pearls gleamed at her throat. But beauty felt hollow when your groom looked at you with empty eyes. The wedding march began. Thomas Blake offered his arm, his jaw tight with suppressed emotion. As they walked down the endless aisle, Cassie scanned the crowd for Dominic. He stood at the altar, impossibly handsome in his custom tuxedo, but his posture was rigid, his face expressionless. Next to him, Julian watched her approach, and the warmth in his eyes was the only thing that kept her feet moving forward. The ceremony proceeded like a dream, words washing over her without meaning. She heard herself repeat vows, felt the cold slide of a ring onto her finger. And then came the moment that would define the rest of her life. If anyone has objections to this union, speak now or forever hold your peace. The silence should have been comforting. Instead, it stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Cassie looked at Dominic, hoping to see some emotion, some sign that this meant something to him. What she saw instead made her blood run cold. Disgust. Pure and disguised disgust. The words that destroyed her? "I have an objection," Dominic said, his voice carrying clearly through the cathedral. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cassie felt her father stiffen beside her, heard her mother's sharp intake of breath from the front pew. "Dominic," Harold Ashford hissed from his seat, rising halfway. "What are you doing?" But Dominic was beyond caring about consequences. Whatever switch had flipped in his mind, whatever last shred of decency he possessed, snapped. He turned to face the assembled guests, his handsome face twisted into a sneer. "I object to this farce," he announced. "I object to marrying beneath my station, to please my father's antiquated notions of respectability. I object to being shackled to someone who will never fit into my world." The cathedral erupted in shocked murmurs. Cassie stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. This could not be real. This had to be a nightmare. Dominic was not finished. He turned to her, and the cruelty in his eyes was breathtaking. "You actually thought I could love you? You, the gardener's daughter? You are a placeholder, Cassandra. A pretty face to parade around until someone better comes along? And trust me, anyone would be better than a girl who smells like fertilizer and cheap perfume." The cruelty of his words cut deeper than any physical wound. Cassie felt something break inside her chest, felt the last shred of her dignity dissolve. Around her, people were standing, shouting, moving, but she could not hear them over the roaring in her ears. Her bouquet slipped from numb fingers. White roses scattered across the marble floor like fallen snow. She tried to breathe, but could not remember how. The room tilted, and she swayed, certain she was about to faint in front of 500 witnesses. And then, strong arms caught her. The embrace that changed everything. Julian moved before conscious thought, abandoning his position as best man to rush to Cassie's side. He pulled her against his chest, one hand cradling her head, the other wrapped protectively around her waist. She collapsed against him, her body shaking with silent sobs. "I have got you," he murmured into her hair. "I have got you, Cassie. You are not alone." The gesture silenced the crowd more effectively than any shout could have. People watched, transfixed, as Julian Ashford publicly chose sides against his own brother. Bethany Reed stood in the front pew, her face pale with understanding. She saw the way Julian held Cassie, the tenderness in his touch, the fierce protectiveness in his posture, and she knew. Whatever she and Julian had, it was nothing compared to this. Dominic stared at his brother, shock replacing the cruelty on his face. "Julian, what are you doing?" Julian lifted his head, his eyes blazing with an anger few had ever seen. "What I should have done weeks ago. Stopping you from making the biggest mistake of your miserable life. She is not worth this," Dominic spat.
"Oh."
"She is worth everything." The words rang out clear and certain, and you are too blind and selfish to see it. Harold Ashford finally found his voice. "Julian, think about what you are doing." "I am thinking clearly for the first time in months, Father." Julian gently guided Cassie toward the side exit, keeping her sheltered against him. "I am choosing decency over family loyalty. I am choosing to protect someone who deserves protection." As they reached the door, Julian paused and looked back at the congregation. His gaze found Bethany, and pain flashed across his face. "Beth, I am sorry. You deserve honesty, and the honest truth is that my heart has not been fully yours for a long time. I just did not want to admit why." Bethany nodded, tears streaming down her face, but there was understanding in her eyes. She had always known she was not his great love, just his safe choice. Julian led Cassie out of the cathedral and into the harsh afternoon sunlight. Behind them, chaos erupted. Guests shouted questions. Reporters who had been waiting outside rushed forward with cameras flashing, and Harold Ashford bellowed orders that no one followed, but Julian heard none of it. His entire focus was on the woman in his arms. The woman he had loved in secret for years. The woman he had watched prepare to marry his brother while his own heart shattered. He guided her to his car, helped her into the passenger seat, and drove away from the wreckage of what should have been her wedding day. Cassie sat in stunned silence, mascara streaking her face, her veil askew, her dreams in tatters. But she was not alone. Julian's hand found hers, squeezing gently. "Where are we going?" she finally managed to ask. "Away," Julian said simply. "Anywhere but here." "Anywhere you want, Cassie. I promise you, you will never face this alone." And for the first time since Harold Ashford had proposed this disastrous arrangement, Cassie felt a flicker of hope. The man she was supposed to marry had destroyed her in front of hundreds, but the man beside her, the one she had never dared to dream about, had chosen her over everything else. The story was far from over. In fact, it was only beginning. The aftermath of shattered dreams, the video went viral within hours. Someone had recorded the entire humiliation on their phone, and by evening, Cassandra Blake was trending worldwide. The hashtags were merciless. Hashtag gold digger exposed. Hashtag Ashford wedding disaster. Hashtag gardener's daughter rejects. Strangers dissected her life, her choices, her worth, without knowing a single truth about her. Julian drove them to his private apartment in downtown Boston, space even his family did not know about. It was his sanctuary, filled with architectural sketches and model buildings. A place where he could be himself, rather than the Ashford heir. He helped Cassie inside, still in her wedding dress, and guided her to the couch. "I should call my parents," Cassie said, her voice hollow. "They must be worried sick." "I already texted your father from the car," Julian assured her. "I told him you were safe with me and that I would protect you. He said to tell you they love you and support whatever you decide." Fresh tears spilled down Cassie's cheeks. Through everything, her parents had been her rock. They had warned her against this marriage, but when she insisted, they stood by her. And now, their daughter was the laughing stock of Boston. Society Julian disappeared into his bedroom and returned with sweatpants and a t-shirt. "These will be huge on you, but at least you can get out of that dress." Cassie looked down at the expensive gown, now wrinkled and stained with tears. It had cost more than her parents earned in 6 months, and it represented the biggest mistake of her life. "I never want to see this dress again." "Then you will not have to." Julian's voice was gentle, but firm. "Change, get comfortable, and when you are ready, we will figure out what comes next. But tonight, you do not have to be strong. You do not have to make decisions. You just have to breathe." After Cassie changed, she found Julian in the kitchen making tea. He had loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, looking more human and less like the society prince everyone knew. When he saw her drowning in his clothes, a sad smile touched his lips. "Better?" he asked. "Different," she replied, accepting the mug of chamomile tea. "Julian, why did you do that? You destroyed your relationship with Bethany, probably damaged your standing with your family, all for me. Why?" Julian was quiet for a long moment, staring into his own mug. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Because I could not watch him destroy you. Because I have watched you for years, Cassie, truly watched you. I have seen your kindness when you thought no one was looking. I have heard your laughter when you worked in the gardens with your father. I have witnessed your dreams when you sketched dress designs during your breaks." He looked up, meeting her eyes. "I have been in love with you since I was 23 years old. And the day my father announced Dominic would marry you, it took everything I had not to object right then. But I thought maybe you wanted it. Maybe you loved him, and I had no right to interfere with your choice." Cassie's breath caught. "You loved me? All this time?" "All this time," Julian confirmed. "But you were going to be my brother's wife, so I tried to move on. I started dating Bethany, thinking I could forget, but I could not. And today, when I saw what he was about to do to you, when I saw him ready to humiliate the woman I love in front of the world, I could not stay silent anymore. The confession hung in the air between them, heavy with years of unspoken feelings. Cassie set down her mug with trembling hands. I never knew. I thought you saw me as just part of the staff. Someone beneath your notice? Beneath my notice? Julian laughed, but it was pained. Cassie, you have been the sun around which my world orbited. Every decision I made, I found myself wondering what you would think. Every achievement felt hollow because I could not share it with you. And every time Dominic said your name, I wanted to grab him and shake him. Make him see what an extraordinary person he was taking for granted. The days that followed the media frenzy intensified over the next week. Reporters camped outside the Blake family home until Thomas threatened them with the garden hose. Harold Ashford issued a statement condemning Dominic's behavior, but the damage was done. The Ashford Empire's stock dropped 3 points, and society buzzed with speculation about the family's dysfunction. Dominic disappeared. According to Julian's sources, his brother had gone to the Ashford vacation home in the Hamptons, where he was drinking himself into oblivion. Part of Julian wanted to go shake some sense into him. Another part never wanted to see his brother again. Cassie stayed at Julian's apartment. Venturing out only for therapy sessions that Julian insisted she attend, Dr. Patricia Howard specialized in trauma and public humiliation, and she helped Cassie process the emotional devastation of what had happened. You are not defined by his cruelty, Dr. Howard reminded her during their third session. His words revealed his character, not yours. The question now is, how do you want to move forward? That question haunted Cassie. Her dreams of becoming a fashion designer felt naive now, childish. How could she build a career when her face was associated with scandal? Who would hire the girl from the viral wedding disaster? Julian tried to encourage her. He brought home fashion magazines, showed her internship postings, even offered to introduce her to contacts in the industry. But Cassie could not summon the energy. Depression wrapped around her like a heavy blanket, making even simple tasks feel monumental. Rachel visited often, bringing takeout and fierce loyalty. Do not let him win, she urged. Do not let Dominic Ashford steal your dreams along with your dignity. You are talented, Cassie. You deserve success. But success felt impossibly far away. When walls come down 3 weeks after the wedding, Julian found Cassie crying in his living room at 2 a.m. He had been working late on an architectural project, and when he came home, he heard her sobs. She was curled up on the couch, clutching a sketchbook, her face buried in a pillow to muffle the sound. Cassie. Julian dropped his briefcase and crossed to her immediately. What happened? What is wrong? She looked up at him with red, swollen eyes. I drew something. For the first time in weeks, I felt inspired, and I drew a dress design. And then I realized that no one will ever want to see it, that my dreams are dead, and I do not know how to be anyone except the girl who got humiliated at the altar. Julian sat beside her, gently taking the sketchbook. The design was beautiful, an evening gown with flowing lines and intricate beadwork. It was elegant and modern, exactly the kind of piece that would turn heads at a gala. This is stunning, he said softly. Cassie, this is the work of someone with real talent. Talent is not enough when your reputation is ruined. Then we rebuild your reputation. Julian set the sketchbook down and took her hands. We show the world who you really are, not the caricature they have created. You are Cassandra Blake, a gifted designer with a unique vision. You are kind, resilient, and stronger than you know. And I will be beside you every step of the way if you will let me. Why? Cassie whispered. Why do you believe in me when I cannot believe in myself? Because I see you, truly see you. And what I see is extraordinary. Something shifted in that moment. The careful distance they had maintained, the unspoken boundaries dissolved. Cassie leaned into Julian and he wrapped his arms around her, holding her while she cried out weeks of pain and fear and shame. When her tears finally subsided, she did not pull away. Instead, she looked up at him, really looked at him, and saw what had been there all along. Love, pure, unwavering, patient love. I am scared, she admitted. Scared to trust again, scared to hope again, scared that if I let myself care for you, something will destroy it. I am scared too, Julian confessed. Scared that I am not good enough, that I will let you down, that my family will find some way to hurt you again. But I would rather be scared with you than safe without you. Cassie reached up, touching his face with tentative fingers. Julian held perfectly still, barely breathing, afraid to shatter the moment. When she leaned in and kissed him, soft and uncertain, he felt his entire world reorganize around this single point of connection. The kiss deepened, years of longing pouring into it. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless, foreheads pressed together. "I do not know how to do this," Cassie whispered. "I do not know how to heal and fall in love at the same time." "Then we figure it out together," Julian replied. "One day at a time, one moment at a time. There is no rush, Cassie. I have waited years for you. I can wait as long as you need." The confrontation that changed everything. Harold Ashford demanded a family meeting 6 weeks after the wedding disaster. Julian did not want to go, but his father made it clear that attendance was not optional. Dominic would be there, and they needed to address the family crisis. Cassie begged Julian not to leave her alone. She had been having panic attacks whenever she thought about the Ashfords, her therapy slowly helping but progressed fragile. Julian solved the problem by bringing her with him. "Absolutely not," Harold thundered when they arrived at the family estate and Cassie got out of the car. "This is a family matter. She is with me, which makes it her business," Julian replied, his arm protectively around Cassie's waist. "If she is not welcome, then neither am I." Vanessa Ashford appeared in the doorway, her expression unreadable. She had been silent throughout the scandal, a fact that Julian noted with some bitterness. His mother valued social standing above all else, and Cassie's presence threatened that standing. "Let them in, Harold," Vanessa said quietly. "We need to resolve this." The meeting was tense from the start. Dominic sat in the study looking haggard. He had lost weight, his expensive suit hanging loose on his frame. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his hand shook slightly. When he saw Cassie, something crumbled in his expression. "I am sorry," he said, the words rushing out. "Cassie, I am so deeply sorry for what I did to you. There is no excuse, no justification. I was cruel and selfish, and I destroyed you for my own cowardice." Cassie stiffened against Julian, but she found her voice. "Why? Why did you do it?" Dominic ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "Because I was terrified. Terrified of commitment, of responsibility, of becoming the man Father wanted me to be. And when I stood at that altar and looked at you so beautiful and hopeful, I panicked. I knew I would disappoint you, ruin you eventually. So I thought it was better to end it immediately rather than slowly destroy you over years." "So you destroyed me in one moment instead," Cassie said, her voice steady, despite the tears on her cheeks. "You took my dignity, my reputation, my sense of self-worth, and you shattered them in front of 500 people because you were scared," Dominic whispered. "And I will regret it every day for the rest of my life." Julian spoke, his voice cold. "Regret does not undo the damage, Dominic. It does not erase the viral videos or the cruel comments or the nights Cassie has spent crying herself to sleep. Your apology is hollow, I know." Dominic looked at his brother, and there was genuine anguish in his face. "I have lost everything because of what I did. My reputation, my father's trust, but worst of all, I have lost you, Julian. You were my best friend, and I threw that away along with everything else." Harold cleared his throat. "I have spoken with our lawyers and public relations team. We can offer Cassandra a substantial settlement. Enough money to start fresh anywhere in the world, pursue any career she wants, never worry about finances again. It is the least we can do." Cassie shook her head. "I do not want your money, Mr. Ashford. I never wanted anything except to be treated with basic human decency, and your son could not even give me that." "Then what do you want?" Harold asked, genuinely curious. "I want to move forward with my life," Cassie said, standing taller. "I want to build my career as a fashion designer, not because of your family name or money, but because of my own talent and hard work. I want the world to know me as Cassandra Blake, designer, not as the girl from the wedding scandal." She turned to Dominic. "And I want you to get help, real help. Therapy, rehab if you need it, whatever it takes to become a decent human being. Not for me, but for yourself and for any other person who might cross your path. Dominic nodded, tears streaming down his face. I am already in therapy. 3 times a week, and I am attending meetings for my drinking. I know it does not fix what I broke, but I am trying, Cassie said simply. Keep trying. Julian squeezed her hand, pride evident in his expression. This was the Cassie he knew, the strong woman who had been hidden under layers of trauma. She was finding herself again, reclaiming her power. Before they left, Vanessa stopped them in the hallway. Julian, may I speak with you privately? Julian looked at Cassie, who nodded. I will wait in the car. Once alone, Vanessa studied her son with calculating eyes. You love her. I do, Julian confirmed, no hesitation. Your father and I were planning to announce your engagement to Bethany Reed next month. That obviously cannot happen now. But Julian, you must understand what being with Cassandra means. Society will judge you. They will say you are keeping your brother's rejected bride, that the Ashfords are dysfunctional, that you are enabling scandal. I do not care what society says, Julian replied. I care about Cassie. And if you and father cannot accept that, then I will walk away from this family entirely. Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. It was small and sad, but genuine. You remind me of myself when I was young, before I let this world harden me. I loved someone once, someone my parents deemed unsuitable. I let them convince me to choose duty over love, and I married your father instead. We have had a good life, a successful partnership. But Julian, I have never been happy. Not truly. She touched his cheek, a rare gesture of maternal affection. Do not make my mistake. If you love her, fight for her. The opinions of others are dust compared to a lifetime of regret. Julian embraced his mother, the first real hug they had shared in years. Thank you, Mother. Building something new for months after the wedding disaster, Cassie's life looked completely different. She had moved into her own small apartment in the Beacon Hill neighborhood, using savings she had accumulated over years of working for the Ashfords. It was modest but hers. It's filled with fabric samples and design sketches. With Julian's encouragement and Rachel's business savvy, she launched an online boutique called Blake Designs. Her first collection featured 10 pieces, each one meticulously crafted and photographed. She posted them on social media with a simple caption, I am Cassandra Blake. I am a designer. This is my work. Judge me by my talent, not my past. The response was overwhelming. Some comments were still cruel, dredging up the wedding scandal, but others were genuinely supportive. Fashion bloggers shared her designs. A small boutique in Cambridge reached out about carrying her pieces. Most importantly, women who had faced their own public humiliations messaged her, thanking her for showing them that survival was possible. Julian watched her flourish with quiet joy. He was careful not to overshadow her success, knowing she needed to build this on her own terms. But he was always there, attending her first trunk show, celebrating when her dress was featured in a local magazine, holding her when self-doubt crept in during lonely nights. Their relationship deepened naturally. There was no dramatic declaration, no official, we are together now moment. Instead, Julian simply became part of her daily life. He brought coffee to her apartment in the mornings, learned to thread a sewing machine, modeled pieces when she needed to see how they moved on a body. She, in turn, attended his architecture lectures, offered opinions on his building designs, and slowly met his friends outside the Ashford social circle. They took things slowly, physically, both aware of the trauma Cassie carried. Their first real kiss beyond that emotional night weeks ago happened on a rainy Tuesday. Julian had picked her up from a consultation with a potential client, and as they ran laughing through the downpour to his car, he pulled her close and kissed her. It was joyful and spontaneous, nothing like the desperate kiss born of pain and need. This was about happiness, pure and simple. I love you, he said when they broke apart, rain streaming down his face. I am in love with you, Cassandra Blake, and I need you to know that before anything else happens between us. Cassie smiled, truly smiled, in a way she had not since before the wedding. I love you too. I think I have for a while now, but I was afraid to admit it. Afraid it was too soon, too complicated, too impossible. Nothing about us is impossible, Julian promised. Improbable, maybe. Unconventional, definitely, but not impossible. The opportunity that tested everything 6 months into their relationship, Cassie received an email that changed everything. Margot Chen, a legendary fashion designer based in New York, had seen Cassie's work online. She was launching a mentorship program for emerging designers and wanted Cassie to apply. If accepted, it meant moving to New York for 1 year, working directly with Margot, and having access to resources that most designers only dreamed about. "This is incredible," Rachel squealed when Cassie showed her the email. "Margot Chen. She is a legend. You have to apply." But Cassie felt sick. She had just found stability. Her relationship with Julian was healthy and growing. Her business was starting to gain traction in Boston. Moving to New York meant leaving all of that behind. When she told Julian that evening, she watched his face carefully for any sign of frustration or anger. Instead, he smiled, though she could see the sadness in his eyes. "You have to apply," he said firmly. "Cassie, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. You cannot pass it up because of me. But what about us?" she asked, voicing the fear that had been gnawing at her all day. Long distance destroyed so many relationships. What if a year apart ruins what we have built? Julian took her hands, his grip warm and steady. "Then we will deal with that if it happens. But I refuse to be the reason you do not pursue your dreams. I watched you rebuild yourself from nothing, saw you fight to reclaim your identity. I will not let fear hold you back now." New York is only 4 hours away, Cassie reasoned, trying to convince herself as much as him. "We could visit on weekends." "We'll make it work," Julian promised. "And if we cannot, if the distance proves too much, then we will be honest with each other. But Cassie, I would rather have you living your dreams for hours away than staying here and resenting what you gave up for me." She applied to the program the next day. 3 weeks later, she got the call. She was accepted. Out of 200 applicants, Margot Chen chose 20 designers, and Cassie was one of them. The program started in 2 months. Those 2 months were bittersweet. Cassie and Julian tried to make every moment count, knowing that their easy routine was about to be disrupted. They took a weekend trip to Maine, walking along rocky beaches and talking about everything and nothing. They hosted a dinner party with their friends. An eclectic mix of Julian's architect colleagues and Cassie's design world connections mingled and laughed. They made love slowly and tenderly, memorizing each other's bodies, as if they could store up enough connection to sustain them through months apart. The night before, Cassie left for New York. They lay tangled together in her bed, neither sleeping despite the late hour. "Promise me something," Cassie whispered into the darkness. "Promise me that if this becomes too hard, if you meet someone else, or if the distance makes you unhappy, you will tell me. Do not suffer in silence, trying to protect me." Julian propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at her in the dim light filtering through the curtains. "I promise I will always be honest with you. But Cassie, I am not going to meet someone else. My heart made its choice years ago, and that choice was you. Distance does not change that. How can you be so sure?" she asked, vulnerability evident in her voice. "Because I have lived without you," Julian said simply. "I spent years watching you from afar. Years dating other women and wishing they were you. Years pretending I was content when I was slowly dying inside. I know what life looks like without you in it, and I never want to go back to that. So yes, long distance will be hard. I am going to miss you desperately. But I would rather miss you and know you are living your dreams than have. You hear and watch those dreams wither." Cassie pulled him down for a kiss that said everything words could. Not the year that changed them New York was exhilarating and exhausting. Margot Chen was a demanding mentor, pushing Cassie beyond her comfort zone and forcing her to take creative risks she never would have attempted on her own. The other designers in the program became close friends, understanding the unique pressure they were all under. Cassie's skills grew exponentially, her portfolio expanding with pieces that attracted attention from fashion editors and boutique owners. But she was lonely. Video calls with Julian helped, but watching his face on a screen was nothing like feeling his arms around her. They tried to visit every other weekend, alternating between New York and Boston. But Julian's architecture firm was handling a major project, and sometimes he could not get away. Cassie's schedule was equally unpredictable. Late nights in the studio and unexpected deadlines. 3 months into the program, they had their first real fight. Julian had promised to come to New York for Cassie's birthday. But the day before, a client crisis required his presence at a crucial meeting. He called to cancel, apologetic and frustrated. "I'm so sorry, Cassie. I tried everything to reschedule, but this client represents half our current revenue. If I do not handle this personally, we could lose the account." "I understand," Cassie said, trying to keep the disappointment out of her voice. "Work is important. You are more important," Julian insisted. "I will make it up to you, I promise. Maybe next weekend?" But next weekend came and went, with Cassie buried in preparations for a major fashion show. The weekend after that, Julian came down with the flu. A month passed where they did not see each other in person, only pixelated faces on screens, growing more tired and stressed with each call. "Are we okay?" Cassie asked one night, unable to ignore the growing distance anymore. "Be honest with me, Julian. Is this working?" There was a long pause. "I do not know," he finally admitted. "I miss you so much it physically hurts. And I am trying to be supportive, trying to give you space to grow. But Cassie, I feel like I am losing you. Not to another person, but to your career, to New York, to this life you are building that does not have room for me." Tears streamed down Cassie's face. "You are not losing me. But you are right, this is harder than I thought it would be. I am so focused on surviving this program that I do not have energy left for us, and that is not fair to you. What do we do?" Julian asked, and she could hear the fear in his voice. "I do not want to give up on us, but I also do not want to be the anchor holding you back. Give me until the program ends," Cassie pleaded. 5 more months. "Let me finish what I started, and then we can figure out what comes next." "Can you wait 5 more months?" "I will wait forever if that is what you need," Julian said softly. "But Cassie, I need to know there is an end date. I need to know that we are working towards something, not just drifting apart in slow motion." They recommitted to weekly visits, no matter what. It was expensive and exhausting, but necessary. Slowly, they found their rhythm again. Cassie made more effort to be present during their calls, putting away her sketchbook and giving Julian her full attention. Julian stopped checking work emails when they were together, focusing only on reconnecting, and gradually, the distance became manageable. Not easy, but possible. The gesture that proved everything, though. Mentorship program culminated in a showcase where each designer presented a mini collection to industry professionals. It was Cassie's chance to prove she belonged in the fashion world, that she was more than a viral scandal. She worked 16-hour days for a month leading up to the event, perfecting every seam, every detail, the night before the showcase. Cassie lay in her tiny apartment, too exhausted and anxious to sleep. She had told Julian not to come, knowing he had a major presentation for his architecture firm the same day. But at midnight, there was a knock on her door. Julian stood in the hallway, looking rumpled and tired but smiling. "Did you really think I would miss this?" Cassie threw herself into his arms. "Your presentation is tomorrow morning at 9. You should be in Boston preparing." I prepared. "The team can handle the presentation without me, but you cannot do the showcase without me in the audience." He pulled back, cupping her face. "I have watched you sacrifice and struggle and create for months, Cassie. I am not missing the moment when you prove to the world what I already know, that you are brilliant." They stayed up talking until dawn, Julian helping her run through her showcase speech, offering suggestions but mostly just being there. His presence steadied her in a way nothing else could. The showcase was triumphant. Cassie's collection, inspired by her journey from humiliation to empowerment, told a story that resonated with everyone who saw it. Dresses in shades of gray gradually transformed into brilliant colors. Fabrics constraining and restrictive, giving way to flowing and free. The final piece was a stunning gown in midnight blue, elegant and confident, representing the woman she had become. When she took her bow, she searched the audience and found Julian. He was standing, applauding so hard his hands must have hurt, with tears streaming down his face. Next to him, unexpectedly, were her parents, Rachel, and even Vanessa Ashford. Julian had arranged for all of them to be there, knowing she needed her people around her for this moment. After the showcase, as industry professionals swarmed with business cards and offers, Julian waited patiently. When the crowd finally thinned, he approached her with something in his hand. "Cassandra Blake," he said, his voice carrying just enough for nearby people to hear. "I have loved you through scandal and separation, through your darkest moments and your brightest triumphs. You are the strongest, most talented, most incredible woman I have ever known. And I do not want to spend another day without you as my partner in everything." He dropped to one knee, opening a small box to reveal a ring. It was not ostentatious or flashy. Instead, it was elegant and unique. A sapphire surrounded by small diamonds, clearly custom designed. "I had this made by a jeweler in Boston," Julian explained. "The sapphire is the exact color of the final dress in your collection. Because that dress, that woman who designed it, that is who I want to marry. Not despite everything you have been through, but including it. All of it. The pain and the strength, the falls and the rising, the dreams and the reality. Will you marry me, Cassie? For real this time, for the right reasons. Because we choose each other." Cassie could barely see through her tears, but she did not need to see clearly to know her answer. "Yes," she said, laughing and crying simultaneously. "Yes, absolutely yes." Julian slipped the ring on her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss that felt like coming home. Around them, people applauded, but Cassie barely heard.